Welcome to the Catholic Table Talk podcast. This is where everything Catholic is on the table. New episodes Thursdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on most podcast platforms. Here's your host, William Sauber.
Us as Catholics should kind of understand the meaning of holy leisure, and it's a little different for everyone. You know, we must ask ourselves, what are we doing to help reclaim the leisure in the form of true rest and worship on Sundays, and also holy days of obligation in our society? Just because also holy days of obligation are just like Sundays. You're supposed to not work and you're supposed to rest on those holy days after the church has throughout the year. But again, what is holy leisure, and is it the same for everyone? So, welcome to episode 245. I know it's a little different. Live streaming, and next day on all the other platforms. Also, we'll post this back to YouTube and Facebook, so everyone can watch it still in the morning on YouTube and Facebook as well. Thank you for joining us live or after the live stream. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share the show. Also, CatholicTT@gmail.com for speaker and show requests. And just kind of the other one. We had to reschedule with the guest, and with the bad storms we've had the past couple of days, just not had a great lot of time to record. So I thought the live stream, at least coming on, debuting live, would be the best fit. So again, like I talked about a couple of weeks ago, holy leisure is sometimes I just get stuff on my mind at work or anywhere else. I'm like, well, let's talk about that. So, and again, holy leisure is not really heard of these days. You might hear more of Sunday West, but you don't really hear the term holy leisure like a lot of Catholics should be using still. And to break it out down, basically it is kind of different for everyone. For example, holy leisure is different for everyone because it depends on what your lifestyle is. An example of this would probably be fasting, right? So, of course, the church it says the laity is required to fasting twice a year on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. And, everyone, at least people that I see and all the groups I'm in and stuff, they're like, well, how can you tell that you're fasting? And yes, it is with the calories, but because some people don't eat a lot, some people eat quite a bit. So again, it's really down to that personal relationship with God, and maybe what God is asking you to do that particular day or that particular time. And it doesn't mean that you're gonna follow through with it, but it's different. So, for example, on holy leisure, for myself, it's pretty easy during the summer for I think everyone too, is to rest and maybe go to the lake on Sunday, take it easy on Sunday, of course, go to church first and foremost. But it's a day that you don't really have. I mean, you probably don't have to go to work, and at least I would hope so. And it's really more for family time and getting together and going places, graduation parties. Maybe you're coming back from a wedding. Maybe you're traveling for a family reunion. Whatever the case might be. Where throughout the rest of the year, it might be a little tougher to have more West, besides if you're, which I'm a lot. I mean, it's why football is so huge. There's so many fans, and that's basically a Sunday West. At least is for me during basically September through second week of February, is basically watching football. Which again, in itself, is not a bad thing, but you can probably overdo it. So again, we're going to do a couple articles here quick, and if other people want to hop on, again, we'll have the link. There it is. So join us live if you want. If I know I set out to many guests, we'll see if anyone comes on. Who knows? But again, it's really different of cultivating a holy leisure for anyone. It's really personal on how you do it. So it's not one size fits all. It's really what do you do on a day-to-day basis, and then how can you rest on Sunday with that. So let's go to one article here from the Diocese of Reading. So somewhat conjures images of relaxation, vacation, and family fun, things we eagerly anticipate during life's busy seasons and long winter months. Yet, how often do we plan time off and embark on vacations only to find that they are not rest of it, right? They're not really rest. It's more go, 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 and then you come back home and you're completely exhausted, only to wake up and go to work probably the next day. So to be really new, we need to be collective, authentic leisure. But what does that mean? Through we work to live, we often equate our existence and what we do rather than who we are. Because, for example, just thinking this over is like we equate our existence. So basically, one thing that came to mind was like the World Cup. Like everyone, all the other countries who are over here, they are like having the time of their lives in this country because I think it's so great. Where we just kind of exist over here. We don't really think of how good we got and what it means to be American. Same thing. We just kind of go to work and embrace the grind, and we kind of forget that we're God's people, and we're supposed to, spread the message and live a life according to holiness. Yet the proper understanding of a human being is one who is not one who does. Catholic German philosopher Joseph Pieper, who wrote extensively on the topic, notes that leisure cannot be associated with an absence of activity or mere indulgence in what we deem restful activities. For going back to football again, watching football all day. It doesn't mean that you should sit on the couch and do nothing. You can still pray. You can still maybe go to church Sunday afternoon and spend an hour with God in adoration. There's multiple things. Be active with your family, especially if you don't have much time during the week to be with your kids. He teaches us that leisure is a state of being, a way of life. It is an attitude of the mind, and a condition of the soul. True leisure entails beholding and celebrating. Athletic leisure slows our minds and bodies, unlocking a new way of beholding the world. We see everything through the eyes of God and become struck with awe and wonder, marveling at God's genuine beauty. Perhaps we might have experienced this when the beauty of sunrise, a starry night, an inspiring work of art, or a boy's gentle song give way to wonder and reflection. This beholding leads to celebrating. It causes us to worship, rejoicing in God and His gifts. It raises our minds and hearts to God, enabling us to pray at all times, as St. Paul instructs in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 18. Holy leisure resembles God's rest on the seventh day of creation as God complements His goodness in His work. So too do we experience leisure when we complement God's goodness. Our souls were made to rest in God and gaze upon His goodness. So again, whether that's going to Mass on Sundays and just kind of being, in awe, and also just taking maybe a Sunday stroll, whether that's like a rosary walk or just walking with the family, just something that's relaxful, and maybe talking to a neighbor or two too, and see how they're doing in their life. And it's real easy too to to focus on work on Sundays. Trust me, but shouldn't be doing that. To cultivate this kind of leisure, we can ask ourselves what restores us, what gives us life. When tired, we often turn to mind-numbing activities like social media, um, just searching the internet, basically just watching TV. Yet afterward, these activities can leave us feeling empty and lacking in mental clarity, and moralization. Aesthetic leisure, however, is life-giving and creative. It refreshes our weary souls, minds, and bodies, and invites us to share in God's creative work. There are certain activities that naturally foster this restful and loving gaze, which Piper understands as leisure. Reading a thought-provoking book, walking in nature, taking a scenic drive, gazing at works of art, listening to musical masterpieces. Yeah, I guess Beethoven, right? Marveling at creation's beauty and engaging in international conversations create space for us to be struck by wonder and encounter God and praise Him. Once we encounter athletic leisure, it takes hold of us, and we desire to reflect God's beauty and goodness, thus becoming co-creators with Him. When we respond by creating works of beauty, we use our talents to ponder and communicate beauty and foster wonders in others. This summer, well, it's still summer, and basically any time of year, because even during Let, even though when we give up things or we try to do more things and have a very meaningful, Let to get back on the right track. I mean, Sundays is a little bit of Easter. It's a little Easter, so Sundays are supposed to still rest and ponder and 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 celebrate. Come out, get holy athletic leisure not only when you feel refreshed mentally, spiritually, and physically, but you will also share in God's creative action. Most importantly, you will experience a foretaste of the eternal rest for which we were created. So, again, it's just some examples. Basically, also, turn off the news. I would think on Sundays, even though I'm pretty much guilty party because I'm kind of guilty party when that comes because I turn on the TV a lot on Sunday mornings and watch the news first thing. But it's again just being more present to family, being more present to God and stuff, and just having that holy leisure. Which again, it's different for everyone. It's like fasting. It's like almsgiving. You know, if you're struggling to get by and feed your family, you're not going to give a lot of money to other families. If you're sitting pretty well, and whether that's material things or money, whatever, you're more likely to give more. So that is that. Also, another article is from our good friend Matt Pulisic, been on the show a couple of times, and so again, just some articles that I found online. Once I get my mouse to work here, bear with me. So again, it's really, and of course, it really comes down to what you are doing, because sometimes we don't feel like it. Sometimes we don't want to take that walk. Sometimes a lot of stuff. Actually, one of our guests, said too. He's like, before his wife passed away, he was watching a football game on Sunday, and he wanted to watch the football game, and his wife went for the walk by herself, and then of course a year later she passed away, and he couldn't do that anymore. So I guess I'll hold my family to it for myself for when season comes along. But really, it's having that restful, that again, being present with the people around you, being present with God, and really kind of taking it all in who you are and why you're here, and getting rest for the next week so you can be better and for the week ahead. All right, so let's get to the next slide here. There we go. So again, this one is from Matt Pulisic. Again, been on the show a couple of times. So thanks to Matt for writing this. So he says, Catholic Apologetics 28. The modern world has lost a true conception of leisure. And he talks and illustrates philosopher Joseph Piper again. He makes the claim that the reconstruction of Western culture demands a rebirth of the notion of leisure. Leisure is distinct from the state of inactivity, because it is based on festival and of formation of the world and for what the world truly is. This takes place most respectively in the festival, which is founded on the concept of worship, which is the recognition that that man is dependent on God. What then does it mean to be at leisure? And what is the act that is most important to leisure? Proclamation. In the period of Reconstruction after the end of the Second World War, the acclaimed goal was restoration of Western civilization. Piper makes the starting assertion that to truly rebuild the Western culture, I'm messing up a big time here. One must rebuild it on the foundation of leisure. This seems almost absurd in a world where the very concept of leisure has been destroyed by our, not just someone else's, not by, you know, you know, other whatever, by our oriented society, humanitarian oriented society, I should say. It would almost seem that we live to work rather than working to live. In part, our very notion of leisure has been replaced by the notion of a break from the working world. So basically, it's a weekend. You get away, it's a break, and you know, like all the memes I've shared a little bit, and it's all over social media. Right, you work how many 40 hours a week, and you get like 40 hours a weekend or something, and for 2 days only, and it's like it's kind of it's really taking a break, and that's where I think that's why people is a big push for a 4-day work week, just so we can have more of a break. The Greek writer Aristotle clearly understood that the entire focus of man's existence was leisure. It is he who explains that man accepts being a state of not a leisure in order to be at leisure. That is, in purpose for which man works, that is that he might be at leisure. This appears so contrary to our very notion of daily living and rest from work, that we are tempted to wonder whether or not this is merely something that is ancient white to have stated, but which has no relevance in modern times. So that's kind of, is outdated. Sunday was a day of rest, but now it's one more day for progress. From the song Mayberry from Rascal Flats, right? If one is tempted to dismiss the saying of Aristotle, that we are not at leisure in order to be at leisure, they might be shocked to find that the notion in Christian doctrine correlates to the Australian notion of leisure. Indeed, our understanding of the human person as such has been altered to such a degree that to get a glimpse of what Aristotle meant by leisure and the values that equity in the Middle Ages placed on such a state, we must attempt to penetrate the notions of work and worker that have become so prevalent in our modern world. It's work this, it's work that, I mean, it is kind of like, I've grown up with it too, but when people mow along on Sundays, it's like, come on, you can't do that Saturday or something? Like, you have to do it now? Like, really? So, yeah, it's always go, go, go. And yeah, we can always do something on a Sunday too. Here's the thing. I think, most like Ben Till came on, one of the guests on the show. He's like, I think most people are good. It's like, yes. And I think most people do wrestling Sundays. At least to some degree, they like to take it more easy. But again, is it the truly holy leisure that we're called to be? And again, not just on Sundays, but also on holy days. So again, it's different for everyone. It's basically basically turn to prayer, ask God for the grace to give you to see where you need to improve on holy leisure. So, that's probably what it comes down to. Um, there we go. On the long document here. The modern world has lost much of what is contained in the notion of leisure, is strictly opposed to what the ancients called Assyria, the worker type, who finds his very meaning in the usefulness he serves to society, can only identify leisure as a sense of idleness and inactivity or less from work, which we commonly refer as relaxation. Assyria is precisely this lack of doing, but the notion goes deeper still. Assyria is fundamentally a despair of never accomplishing that which one is meant to be. It is giving up an effort to be who one is. The attitude may be found looking behind even the most physically satisfying extractions. When In order to understand leisure, Piper's then seeks what is dramatically opposed to Celia. The modern man would have us believe that is the antagonism of the worker contributing to the good of the society. But if Assyria is fundamentally a denial of man's existence as a man, then its opposite must be a fundamental affirmation man of who man is. Piper turns to St. Thomas Aquinas for the startling statement that Assyria, so often understood as the man who fails to do any work, is not resting per se, but is a very sin against the command of rest. Assyria then is the restlessness that opposes to the very spirit of leisure. Assyria said, after all, is one of the seven deadly sins. After this contrast, Piper attempts to provide a concept of leisure to the reader. Leisure, then, in the first place, is a stillness of spirit, an opening of mind to receive. Secondly, is opposite to the idea of work as effort, for it takes place as a sense of celebration, of approval of the world created by God. The highest expression of this celebration is the festival, and truly no festival is greater than and more important than Sunday celebration of the holy sacrifice of the Mass. Thirdly, leisure must be understood as opposed to the concept of break from work. A break is meant to afford man the ability to continue working. The break is fundamentally for the sake of work. Leisure Leisure, through truly refreshing, derives this freshness from the very fact that it is for its own sake. It is not only accidental that man is better able to work after being at leisure. Leisure is not about making the worker a better functionality, but about making him more human. And participating in leisure, something of the human is left behind and its spark is divine achieved. So again, like we talked a lot about during Let, you know, and Advent, especially those two seasons, and anytime it's like turning back to God, you know, and really, again, going back down to that human level of stuff. So continuing, for Piper, the heart of leisure lies in affirmation of the word. There is no more solid affirmation of the meaning of the word to be found than the present in festival and this affirmation in the praise of God. The Creator, the festival derives its entire meaning from the aspect of worship presented in it. Thus, leisure too is based primarily in worship. There has undoubtedly been attempts to divorce celebration from its divine origins. Of course, there has been, right? What else is new? But they are, as of the present, all empty of real meaning, except insofar as they steal from authentic religious activity. It is in the spirit of festivity that the great gulf between work and leisure is seen. Work is always about production, and the advancement of society marked by compensation. Yeah. Festivity, on the other hand, is marked by sacrifice, where one gives not just from surplus, but even when there is a lack. This fundamentally opposed to the notion of useful endeavors. The question of what one is to do is then posed, and Piper replies more along the lines of what not to do than what to do. Leisure, certainly then, with its greatness, expression, and worship celebration, arises naturally in a Catholic culture, but Piper warns that trying to re-establish the leisure as a method for restoring culture is to defeat the very purpose of leisure. Leisure must truly be for its own sake. It can never be a means to an end, and thus it can never be done for the sake of restoring culture. I mean, I think too, with the world that we live in, I mean, if people are not going to, follow the gospel and follow Christ, not believe there's a God or whatever, how are they going to take on leisure in itself, right? So, yeah, that's a good point there by Piper. So, again, it's a little bit different for everyone, right? It depends on what you are doing, and kind of depends on what every day looks like for you. And like I said, going back to fasting, going back to almsgiving, all that stuff. But again, it's not just during Sundays; it's also during holy days. Whether if you still have to work or not, but just taking that leisure time to going to mass and trying to do not so much homework or home projects when you get off of work, and having that holy leisure. And again, not the idleness. I mean, you can be idleness on the couch and like I said, watch football, do nothing. But you can also be idleness and really have a really good. I mean, let's all get real. We all daydream. We all have a pretty good imagination of what about stuff going on. But having that imagination about what God has done for you and why you're here, and that. So again, holy leisure is not about idleness. Because I would say this too in closing, that watching football for me for 12 to 15 hours a day, that's tiring, right? Basically it depends on when my team plays, but by the time mid-afternoon comes around, I have the urge to do something. Like, okay, I've been sitting all down. I'm almost getting tired because I haven't done anything. So again, it's not about being idleness, but still being present, being in the spirit, and really, again, not taking a break from work, but just really allowing this refresher for the soul and the body, but for the soul, importantly, because that's what all that matters in the end. So, anyway, hopefully you like it. Again, we'll have it up on YouTube and Facebook for everyone to rewatch again. If you're listening to this for the first time on Thursday, or when the show comes out, thanks for listening. And stay and say grace for the sacraments. God willing, we'll have the guests who had to reschedule on next week. We'll see about that. But also, again, more stuff coming through on the podcast. So, God willing, we'll see you next week on Catholic Table Talk.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Catholic Table Talk podcast, where everything Catholic is on the table. Don't forget to subscribe to Catholic Table Talk on your favorite podcast platform to get new episodes delivered directly to you every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern.